Hello and welcome to your weekly podcast from Freestyle Media in partnership with the Magic 5, where you can get 15% off a pair of their custom fit goggles by using the link in the description to this episode. Do also check out Oxalt Strength and Conditioning. So that's Nathan Oxford. He works with athletes, including swimmers, and he's been getting great results for his swimmers, both in and out of the pool. So you can check his stuff out on www.oxalt.com. So this week, we are going to talk about mental health and the impact that swimming has on our mental health, whether it's a good thing or sometimes a hindrance. And so to join me with that conversation, we've got Beth Hogg and James Simpson out in Club Lasanta. How are you both?
Hello.
Yeah, really good.
Very good, thanks.
All good. Yeah, you're looking very tanned, which is good. We've also got James Barwick. Welcome back to the podcast, mate.
Evening.
You okay?
Not too bad.
Good. Coming off the back of a few days ill.
Yeah, but drag myself out of bed just for you.
Well, no, we appreciate it. Thank you. And it's also a podcast debut. A debut on this podcast, Jo Beardsworth. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, absolute pleasure. Thank you. So I thought what we would do is we'd start off by just having a general check-in as to where we're all at the moment in our lives. Just give us a little flavour and then actually talk about how swimming is then affecting that, if it's having a positive impact or a negative impact. So just as an example, for me personally, life is good at the moment. I've just had a nice summer. We had a nice unexpected week of weather just the other week, which was lovely. I'm going on holiday next week, so I'm feeling great. And swimming is so positive for me at the moment because it's like a real focus. I'm racing this weekend. It's the first time I'll have raced for 3 months. And then we've got nationals coming up as well. So life's good for me. And actually swimming's just a really, really big part of that. So Jo, would you like to kind of start and give us a little flavour as to where you're at?
Yeah, well, actually, I am normally in the same space as you. I'm always in there because I'm so resilient. But this week you've caught me at a really stressed time, actually. So I'm sort of, in the survival zone at the moment. There's been so much going on in my life, so much going on at work. But there's sort of silver lining is I'm going to Lasanta next week. So that should hopefully get me back into that performing zone. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, that sounds good. Well, yeah, and I hope it does for sure. And James, we've already alluded to the fact that you've been a little bit under the weather recently, but generally, how are you feeling, and kind of how is swimming helping or hindering?
Bit of a restructure at work, so different ways of working and changing. So all the stresses that are coming with that at the moment, that's coming thick and fast. I mean, it's a pressure environment. No two ways about it. But swimming, perfect, because as I alluded to when I was last on, between being at work and going home, I have my training session, and that's just the place for me to unwind, relax as much as you can during a training session. So by the time I get home, the stresses of the workday, they're washed away. So swimming really is helping at the moment.
No, I'm glad. Although I don't agree with relax, because your training is just sprint, isn't it? And there's nothing relaxing about that.
I did some hundreds recently.
That's about the furthest up. So no, I like it. That's good. So Beth and James, you're out in Lasanta. So I'd imagine that life is feeling quite good for you guys right now.
I'd say so. Yeah, it's not a bad life out there, is it?
No, it's so nice. Yeah, and I've just finished my PhD as well. So I'm literally about to hand that in. So I feel like all the stress is it's pretty much starting to tail off now. So I've just got to basically get back from the site next week, submit it, and then I'm a free woman, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
So brilliant. I'm feeling pretty
That's
nice.
Amazing.
And swimming is the best outlet for that. So it's been the best outlet for the last basically since I started swimming again. So it's been great.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. And Simo, is this this is not your first time at Lasanta, is it? You've been a few times now.
No, yeah, I've been. I think I've been 2 times before, haven't we?
Yeah.
I've come out and visited you. Yeah, it's going all right. I think, how James and Jo alluded to, is that swimming is always, doesn't matter how you feel, you get in the water and you switch onto your swimming mode. It's almost like two separate personalities. So it is, yeah. Work's been stressful and always will be and always has been, but it's just the way it is. But yeah, swimming's going all right. Happy, enjoying it, and
yeah,
we'll make it continue.
Yeah, I'm glad. I really like the phrase about the two sort of the split personality, because there are times when I'm at work and I'm so like mentally I'm so switched on to the job that I do that I almost like forget I even swim. It's as if like swim doesn't even exist. And then I like log off at the end of the day and I think, oh, I've got training tonight. And then I'm at swimming and it's as if I don't have a job. Like I'm so all in on whatever I'm doing. It's it's funny how it kind of works, and that split personality is definitely a thing for me. But let's talk about our relationship with swimming generally. Would we say it was positive or negative? First of all, James Barwick, I'll come to you. Positive or negative?
You know, as a rule of thumb, yeah, it's going to be positive overall. But you know, there's that negative aspect that comes into it because you know, obviously, as we're getting closer to nationals, you're going to start probably putting a bit more pressure on yourself with the thought of performance and building up and getting ready for that. So, yeah, that's probably going to add some negative thought, well, not negative thoughts, but you know, negative pressure that you may or may not put on yourself. But you know, as a whole, certainly swimming, obviously, like I say, well, as we've all alluded to, that the fact we can use swimming as an outlet to get away from our day-to-day lives as such, and you know, you can use that. So for me, overall, swimming definitely a positive within my life.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, and I'm interested about the negative slant that you took there, saying about the stress that you feel around nationals. Jo, I'm going to come to you on this. Because I'd imagine we all feel heightened stress around competition because we want to do well, and it might feel like a negative sort of it might bring negative feelings. But do you think that is actually a negative thing, or do you think somewhere it's actually a positive thing that you kind of feel nervous and it's positive, but maybe doesn't feel like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a person who always tries to flip to the positive. I always do that. And I know what you mean, what you're saying there, James. But I think what I do is when I first came back from swimming, I remember doing the nationals for the first time and I was really nervous because I hadn't competed for so long. But then I thought, what the hell am I doing? You know, why am I being so nervous? What do I do it for? What's my purpose? And I just thought, this is what I love. It's my sanctuary. You know, it's an escape. I can be me. And so I tend to think it doesn't matter how I perform against others. I just want to enjoy it. I'm here to enjoy it. And I think that really changes my mind. I just think, what am I here for? You know, stop shaking, get on with it, do it. You train all the time. So just have a go, really. I know that you could think, oh God, that's easy, isn't it? But I know you just have to really think about, why are we here? What is the purpose? That's what I tend to do.
I think it's that inherent fear of cocking it all up, you know, to put it mildly. You know, you put all the work in, but once you get you get in the warm up, you get that first race out of the way, those thoughts go. But it's just that little that just voice at the back of your head that always says, have you done enough?
I think that warm up helps, doesn't it? It really does. It gets some adrenaline out of your system. I think, you know, that really does help.
Yeah, I think it's true. And Beth, I wonder what your thoughts on this is. That like maybe those negative feelings that we feel around like racing or whatever, is that because we're just so passionate about what we do? Because, you know, for example, to flip it in something that I experience is that when I do this podcast, something that I really love doing, we have this 5-second countdown that comes on the screen just as we're about to record. And week in, week out, my throat just immediately dries up when I see that 5-second countdown. And yeah, I love doing it. But, you know, that feels like a negative feeling just for like a few seconds. But I wonder if it is just because it's a passion. And so it's something that we want to do really well at.
Yeah, I think you definitely get some negative self-talk when you really care about races and you care about competitions. I think you're always going to have that kind of voice in your head that argues your positive voice. And I think like the more you care about it, the more I care about something, the more nervous I get. So especially like you can tell, like I can always tell like the events I care about at nationals or any competition, like more than the kind of fun events that I do, or events that I haven't swam maybe for like a long time. So like I'm like a mess before every 200 backstroke, but if I'm just doing like 100 IM, like dancing on poolside, absolutely fine. You can vouch for this, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Simo, you came on the podcast in January and you talked about how your relationship with swimming has changed, and how you used to get incredibly nervous. You still get nervous now, of course, but it used to really affect you, and now it's something that you've just learned to love. And I was kind of thinking about what you were saying there just recently in prep for this podcast, and I thought, is it that your relationship has changed, or is it that actually those feelings that may have been a negative in the past, you feel differently about those feelings, if that makes sense, and you've flipped it into being a positive. So you still feel the same things, but you're more positive around the idea of that now?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think the other day when Beth was talking about the podcast, that's something that me and you talked about, is that not necessarily it's the stress, it's your perception of that stress. Like, we looked and we talked about, and it is like, you probably still have the same feelings, like you say, you're absolutely right, but it's how you perceive that stress or that sort of nervousness and that worrying, that like worrying thoughts inside your head. Like, you look at some of the best athletes, they thrive off that. They still get those thoughts. They'll be stood behind the blocks at the Olympic Games thinking, like James said then, they're going to cock it all up. But they love that. Like, they thrive off that. So I think they just perceive that as that's part of the process. Like, I'm going to go through a stage prior to my performance of thinking, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I've not trained hard enough. All those questions and all those thoughts you bring up, but that's part of the journey. So they accept that if that happens, I'm doing something right, And I guess it comes back to, like you saying there, Jo, is that you just have to trust yourself. Like, you trust what you've done is the right thing to have done, and then all those thoughts, that nervousness is going to happen. There's nothing you do about it, but you have to perceive it in a way of, that's just part of the journey. That's part of the process of performing, is that you're going to come across that and accept it, and then you can focus on the racing.
Also, what he's really good at is kind of externalizing all of his negative thoughts, like before race day. So, like, weeks in advance, you'll have like, oh, I really want to do this, but I'm just like thinking, like, I don't know if I can do it. And then by the time it gets to race day, you're like kind of locked in and really solid, and you're like, I can do this. And like, you're really good at that. Whereas I'm kind of like, I get to race day and I'm the most nervous I've ever been through the whole run up to a competition. So it's like very different approaches, and I would say that yours is maybe more successful than mine.
Yeah,
but I think that comes with practice.
Don't you think it's yeah?
I mean, I don't know if you guys felt the same, because I was reading Joe's questions beforehand, and I was sort of thinking back when I was an age group swimmer. I didn't get nervous, didn't have any fear, didn't care. Just rocked up, did my races, regionals, not counties, nationals. It wasn't there, but it seems to be part of growing up as you get older. You always develop a bit more of a fear of heights, not because you're scared of the heights, but you're more aware of what would happen if you fell off.
Very true.
And I think I'm more critical and more analytical of myself swimming now than I ever was as an age group swimmer, which in turn has just put that little bit more self-stress on the situation. But again, refers back to...
I was going to say that's quite... Sorry, I'm like trying to talk it.
Right.
Sorry about that, guys. But I was going to say, I'm the opposite to that. I think when I was a kid, I had parents to please, and I didn't want to mess up for them. But now, I mean, one of the pieces of advice somebody gave to me ages ago, Lynn, if you're listening, he said to me, swim your own race. And that's it. As a master, it's just you. You haven't got your parents saying, you didn't do your PB, whatever. And I just think, I just completely have more I'm probably be so nervous at Bolton on Saturday now, but who knows? But I think, normally I think, no, I've got to swim my own race. It's me. I've trained hard. If I don't do my PB, I sort of don't do it, but I'll give it my best shot. And, that's what I tend to do. So we're all different, aren't we? We perceive it differently.
Yeah. And Jo, I think your point there and James's point, those things can actually both be true at the same time, because I think there is an element of, I'm here, I'm a master swimmer, this is completely my choice now. So what is there to be nervous about? But actually, James, I agree with what you say, because when I was an age grouper, I didn't know what analysis was. So I never analysed what I did. Now, I'm more aware of those things, and even just things like your coach videos you, and so you get to see yourself swimming and you go, oh my god, do I look like that? Whereas I didn't. And so,
my age group coach told me the exact same that Jo got told. You swim your own race, you don't worry about anyone else, you just do what you need to do. And I still do that now, and luckily my parents weren't I don't want to say blasé about it. They weren't pushy. They were just, you swim because you want to do. We'll support you.
Yeah.
So I never felt that pressure. So it's probably where that relaxed side. I mean, my mum's still now. Oh, are you swimming this weekend? Yeah. What are you swimming? The same races I did for 30 years. I'm not suddenly going to become a 400 IM swimmer overnight. So yeah, luckily I didn't have that. But again, I think it's just the knowledge that you acquire as you get older. Well, personally, that's probably added to my extra stresses.
Absolutely. Jo, I want to come to you on this. Do you think a lot of it is to do with the goals that we set ourselves, but also trying to look at things with relativity? And an example that I'll give there is that so Simo is a lot faster than me, but just hypothetically, come the end of this year, I might be sitting there going, "What a year I had! I got X, Y, and Z PBs. I feel great." Whereas Simo might go, "Oh, I got a couple of PBs there. Wasn't so happy with these races. It wasn't a success." Yet put me and him together, and he'd beat me every day of the week. So do you think a lot of it is relativity and just how we set our goals?
I think so, and how we sort of think, what we can do about it. Because I think nerves are brilliant. We've got to have the nerves, and we can control the stress. I mean, I'm going into my work mode here because this is what I do, with people, mainly business people, working on goals, etc. But I think we can really sort of bash down the obstacles, to overcome it. I really do. The mindset is so important. You can. I'm not saying it always works because sometimes it doesn't, but you can actually smash it to make yourself. Just thinking about, like I said, the purpose. You have that choice. It's your race. You've got to deliver it. You may cock up with the timing of it. Let's say in a 400 or an 800, which I've definitely done, gone out too fast, and I sometimes think, oh, it doesn't hurt. What's pain? But I mean, wow, it is big when it hits, isn't it? But I do think that mindset really plays a big part of it.
Yeah, completely. James, are you more competitive now than you were as an age grouper, or not even as an age grouper, but are you more competitive now than you were 10, 15 years ago?
I was thinking about this one. I was trying to think, I mean, I was competitive then, and I would say just as competitive now, but I think the way I think about it is probably sort of more intense now than it was back then. I mean, back then it was competitive, but the team I was with, age group, a bunch of lads, we were all enjoying ourselves, but it was more internal than I ever thought external. So it was almost a game, which is, the stress was there, but you're 16, 17, 18, it doesn't affect you the same way you do when you're older. But definitely as competitive. But I just think of things differently now.
Yeah, no, interesting. And Beth and Simo, you guys, obviously you're a couple, you're both swimmers, you both swim with the same club, etc., etc. I know that I find if I'm stressed about swimming, I'm not quite sure who to talk to about that because, I mean, maybe my dad used to coach as an age grouper, but he's not really been involved in swimming for a long, long time. So I guess he's probably the best person I can speak to because he understands the sport. You two have each other. A, do you find that helpful? Or B, do you sometimes find that, I don't know, maybe just kind of get in the way of each other's thoughts sometimes?
Probably a combination, Jo.
You're going to start domestic.
Yeah. But if you ever want to speak to anyone, Jo, about your swimming, you can always message me. I'll be there for you.
I'm speaking like you're not here, sorry. Yes, Timo is really good at being kind of a voice of reason, and is very good when you're having a bit of a spiral, especially when you're feeling rubbish about races.
Can you give us an example of that, Beth? So say if you're feeling nervous going into your 200 back, what's the sort of thing that Simo would do leading into that?
What would you say?
It depends what you say to me, really. I think that's how I have to respond with the...
Okay, so maybe I will say, like, I can't do it. I'm going to swim crap. I'm going to do really badly.
Yeah. I'd say that's totally normal. Everyone's thinking that.
Yeah.
Most people behind the blocks are going through the same process. It's totally normal to do that because it means something to you. Like the race itself, like you said before, you probably put more pressure on yourself because in swimming because you have in your eyes, it has a higher value than other things. So that's why it means so much to you. So you're always going to doubt yourself more, because there's that, like, at the end of the rainbow, there's this golden pot of like this glorious 200 backstroke which you want to achieve, but there's a storm in the way, and they're your thoughts. That's the way that it sort of comes across, and you're sort of, that inner monologue is just trying to chew away at any ounce of positivity to get there. But you just have to sort of normalize it. Like, that's totally normal. Like, every athlete goes through the same thing.
Yeah, and then failing that, if I'm really unreasonable, he's like, I'm not having this. Like, I'm just stop.
Which sometimes you do. And just to flip it then, Simo. So let's say when you actually go to a competition and the pair of you are there, you're both swimming, you've both got your own races to kind of think about, but you also want to be there for each other. What kind of things is Beth saying to you ahead of a race? Especially if you're going for a race where you think, do you know, I could win this, for example. Is Beth calming you down? Is she hyping you up? Like, what's the dynamic?
She normally just gives me a hug and says, smash it. And that's pretty much about it.
And do you find that kind of calm approach is good?
Well, no, because I go to Beth sort of normally if she's there, because sometimes we have conflicting sort of schedules, and I'll say, I'm going to go down for this race, and she go, right, go and smash it. And I was like, right, I will do. And it's sort of like, I like to see her before my race, because it's sort of a bit thick, like you were saying there, it's calming, like it's someone I know. And
calming.
It is. It is, because I have a lot of thoughts as well that are sort of...
Yeah.
But it is, it's sort of a sense of reassurance.
It's recorded.
I think
it simple. I think that's what I prefer. I like it just to keep it simple.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think you maybe need less positive affirmations than me at the minute. You're kind of very like mentally quite sound, whereas I can be a bit all over the place. Mm. But I feel like the longer that we've known each other, the kind of fewer things I have to say to him, because especially when we know how each other is swimming. At the minute, you're swimming like pretty well in like big competitions, and you kind of, at the minute, I don't need to say a lot. But I feel like if you were having like a pretty bad run, I'd have kind of maybe more reassurance for you. But at the minute, it's like you're pretty good. At the minute, you have like a lot of reassurance for me, which is nice.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a good dynamic. And so, Jo, obviously we've got nationals coming up soon. You said you're racing at Bolton this weekend.
Yeah.
Do you find that when you have a competition coming up, that maybe heightens your stress and therefore maybe affects your relationship with swimming? Whether, because maybe when you've just got a couple of months of no racing, just training, maybe it just feels like a really lovely thing to do at the end of the day after you work. But then when you've suddenly got races coming up, you're thinking, oh my God, like I can't train tonight. That stresses me out because I want to get my sessions in. Like, do you find that your relationship changes when you've got a competition?
The thing is, I think if I can't go swimming, I get stressed anyway, a little bit more. And that's what I was meaning this week. I've been overwhelmed, which I'm not often overwhelmed with everything because I try and control it. But a load of things have been out of my control. I've had a bad back as well, so I haven't been able to train. And that actually did get me, because swimming is like, I love it, like everyone else on here does. It's like my therapy. So I couldn't have that. And I feel that is the reason, because I couldn't go, as much, that has built, perhaps built up the back pain and built up the stress as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. James, have you ever found that you've had to take a week off from swimming, not because physically you need a break, but you just think, do you know what, mentally I'm getting maybe too obsessed with this, I just need to take a step back?
I never have, but looking back and thinking back, there are probably times when I should have. You get to the stage where you burn out because you're thinking nationals or Euros or Worlds is in 12, 15, 20 weeks, and you're just plowing yourself into it. And there are a few times I sort of look back and thought, I've gone too hard into this at that particular time, and it's cost further down the line. I know a few times I've had few stupid injuries where It's like, no, I must keep going. It's in your head. You don't want to lose the sessions. But yeah, ultimately, I never have taken off because of, but I'm looking back, I probably should have a few times.
Do you ever take time off though, James? Because I know a lot of people, maybe after nationals, for example, say, right, I'm going to give myself a month off. I know, again, Beth and Simo, they got into climbing, I think, last year. Have you ever had a time where you've just thought, actually, I'm just going to have a break just for a laugh and just run or play rugby or something?
Only when I gave up after age group. Since I've been back in Masters, it's just sort of been a couple of weeks off of Christmas and sort of a week or two off in the summer, the sort of first half of the year, second half of the year. I've never gone, that's it. I need a 3-month break. I'm going to go and change to another sport. I enjoy swimming too much. And I think, again, the psychology of it, there's that fear that if I'm out for too long, it's just going to be too painful and hard to get back in after that much time.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Christmas break then? If you know you're going to have a couple of weeks off, probably everybody else is as well. Are you okay with that? Or do you think, this is going to be painful in January?
I try to do a bit of damage limitation in the months leading up. So I try to keep as true to training through as much of December as I possibly can. I generally go and visit my parents over Christmas back in Norwich. So there's a nice 50-metre pool there. So it's a case of I plan to swim every other day. If I don't, I'm not that bothered, because at the end of the day, you've got to switch off physically and mentally for a little while. So it's just nice to not think, right, I've finished work, I've got to get off to training. It's like, I know what times the pool's open. If my family say, should we go and do this? Yeah, tell you what, we'll go and do that. But I'm supposed to go training. Doesn't matter. It's sort of it's like chocolate for breakfast. It doesn't really, it doesn't count in that week.
It's very true. Chocolate at breakfast, a beer at the airport at 6 a.m. It's
Exactly.
Absolutely fine. It doesn't matter. How about you, Joe? Have you ever had an enforced break from swimming, because you feel like you've needed to step back?
Not really, but I think it is a good thing, especially with energy. Sometimes I don't sleep so well, and then I think you just can't go in the morning. You've only had 3 hours. It's better to have that time off. And actually watching other people having a few days off, it's not going to make that much difference. Maybe having a month off, yeah, but because it's that pain, I do have the fear of the pain coming back training. That is for sure. But yeah. I think it is a good thing to take time off when you're not feeling 100%. Definitely, when you're not performing, you've got to replenish, haven't you? You've got to rebuild, basically. The energy, I can notice when the energy is going down on me, and I think, maybe get more frustrated with different areas of your life or whatever. And you just think, hold on a bit, you need to get to bed early, or maybe take tomorrow morning off or whatever. That's what I tend to look for, those triggers.
Yeah, that's definitely a healthy way of looking at it. I'm going to put this question out to all of you, so anyone feel free to stick your hand up and answer this. Have any of you ever felt pressure in terms of physically how you look? So, swimming is a very exposing sport. We're in our Speedos, we're in our cozy. Have you ever had times in your life where you thought, I don't think I want to take my top off or whatever? And has that therefore made you think, I don't really want to go swimming?
Yeah,
is the honest answer. When I was younger, teenager, I had really bad acne. I mean, I've still got the scars now, but as a kid, it was really bad. And when it first came out, there was that. Get into the pool as quickly as possible so no one saw it. But over time, that went away because your mates, your teammates, they don't care. It's like, whatever it is. And even now, I'm not the smallest of guys. I've got certainly got a bit of extra around the middle, and sort of even then, you sort of look at some of your competition, and go. Ugh. But again, you get over that. So yeah, those thoughts have been there, but it's how you deal with them.
And has anybody ever had any other kind of external factors that have then affected their love and value of swimming? Might be a difficult question. I'm thinking maybe has anything happened at work or anything that's actually negatively or made you think negatively about swimming?
I think just being in toxic club culture when I was younger, which was what eventually forced me out of swimming. that I think like there was a lot of obviously this is very like hot on the press at the minute, but there was a lot of body image issues in the final club that I was at before quitting, and there was a lot of like weight being taken, and obviously when you're a young teenager, there is so many. I mean, everyone is always different shapes and sizes, but I think definitely I felt like I was a lot bigger than a lot of other girls, and that kind of made me not enjoy swimming and not want to be in a costume. And I still had that basically up to coming back, so I had it all the way through uni. Like, I still felt really insecure about that, and kind of only really just started to get over that when I went into master swimming. But it's kind of like I've kind of got past it now. Like, everyone looks different. There's no like standard body shape or size or look. Master swimmers are, a plethora of shapes, which I think is really beautiful about it. Like, I think it's amazing to see different sorts of people get into training, get into master swimming.
And I love how that translates to racing as well, because you can be stood behind the block, and one person could be stood there 5'8", 65 kilograms, and then they could be stood next to somebody at 6'2" and 85 kilograms, and yet you swim at the same speed. And I just think that's really fascinating. You're both completely different sculptures, yet you're the same speed, but yet you approach the race differently, and your stroke rate's different, your technique's different, but the output is the same. And I think that's a fascinating thing. Jo, have you ever had a break from swimming? Because I know that Simo, Beth, James, and myself, we all left swimming after age group, and then actually had a number of years off. Some of us more than others. Have you ever had a break from it in your life?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I left at 18 when I moved away from home, and then I came back. Oh well, actually, I did come back earlier, probably at age of 40, just for a couple of years, and then it was just too much. I couldn't fit it in, and then I came back about. Oh God, my maths are terrible. Can't even count the laps. I'm just trying to think now. I came back about 5 years ago, something like that. So, but going back to the body image, it's kind of funny because I remember when I first came back and joined Wickham, I said, "Oh God, I feel really exposed in my costume," and I said, "Oh, my cellulite." I was going off like this, and he said, "Don't worry about that, Jo. We're not even looking at you." And basically, it made me laugh, and I just thought, "Yeah, sod it. Who cares?" And I think actually, when you go to nationals or any competition I know Beth will have seen this in the female changing room, all shapes and sizes. No one gives a damn. It all takes us like 20 minutes to get our race suits on. That is a hideous sight, I can tell you. I mean, when I got back into a race suit, my husband, I was with my husband when I was trying one on, and he was trying to peep around the curtain. I was going, "Get lost, get away." Seriously, it's terrible, isn't it, Beth? But you don't worry about it. And I think those sort of incidents make you think, it doesn't matter. I'm not bothered as much as I used to be.
I mean, you've got me into a very small arena before, and that took about 45 minutes. I think if there's love, I don't know what it is.
There's no dignity on race days.
I feel like if you want to. So I feel like if you want to really get to know somebody at their worst, be with them while they're trying to get a skin suit on.
Oh yeah, it's an icebreaker.
Because this was like before nationals, short course nationals last year, and we'd got like very twee. We'd got like matching race suits. Obviously, Simo's fit perfectly. But then I was like trying to get mine on, and it took two of us and like an hour in my flat. And I was like, on race day, I was like, this is never going to happen. And we had like scabs on our fingers from when like it had taken the skin off our fingers trying to pull it up. It was just it was a lot of, tuck and push, pinch and pull. It was awful.
Yeah. It's a great icebreaker.
It's a very good icebreaker, for sure. Let's go around the houses then. Knowing now that we've all had time away from the sport and have come back to it, I've got two questions that kind of intertwine. The first one is, how has your relationship with swimming changed? And then the second one is, what lessons have you kind of learned from a kind of mental health point of view and how you feel about the sport, whether that's training or racing or whatever? What lessons have you learned from when you used to swim? And Jo, for example, you can even talk about when you used to swim when you were 40. Like, it doesn't always have to be thinking about when you're age grouper. You could think about how you used to think and feel about races 2-3 years ago. But yeah, how has your relationship changed? And what kind of lessons have you learned? And Simo, I'll start with you, and then I'll go round the cameras.
Right. It's a tough question, that one, Jo. I guess because I was like writing some stuff down before we came on air, and I guess that question, I think what brings to my mind is like, what does swimming mean to you? Is like the sort of like the ultimate sort of, I guess, like what you're trying to get at, which is quite a fascinating question because everyone has their own sort of relationship with it, and that's what's great about the sport, is that everyone has their own sort of interaction with it in all different ways and all different manners, and that's what's sort of quite interesting. But I guess going to the question you asked, relationship with swimming has changed, is that I think it fluctuates. it could fluctuate at the end of every length, to be honest with you, Jo, because it just depends what you're doing in the water at the time. But I think on the whole, it's gone from sort of positive to negative to positive. There's been loads of highs and lows, but on the whole, I think it's become more of a positive force in recent years. I think when I swim, I just feel better. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, it doesn't matter how hard you're working. You just, at the end of a hard day, you get in the water, you can't hear anything else apart from the water rushing past you. You have that weightlessness, and it just...
Your own screams.
Yeah, you can't hear anyone else. Doesn't matter how hard they shout at you. It seems to take the sort of the edges, off your day, really. You just seem to feel a lot better and a lot lighter. And I always think, a bit like you were saying before, is about having a break from swimming, is that sometimes I will take sort of a few sessions out of the week and after a hard competition, just sort of deload. But you do always feel better after getting in the water. And you don't really need to worry about the times that you're posting. It's just more about getting in and swimming and worrying and thinking about what it is you're doing and how you're doing it. But I think it's definitely become a massive positive force in my life. When I swim, I do feel better. It is good for mental health on a whole, I'd say. It comes with the added stress of competition. Yeah. I can sort of park that and just say that's, a bonus. If I swim well, I get to compete, and I get to compete it really well. That's like a bonus. I just love being in the water.
So I've got a really quick follow-up question, Simo. Yeah. When you do get your negative feelings, whether it's stress around a competition or just generally feeling quite negative, would you still take that rather than not swimming at all?
Oh yeah, I think that's something that's probably changed, is that I think before, when I was younger, is that would be a reason for me to go, oh God, I don't want to swim. But now I think I've normalised that. That's completely normal. That you are going to feel like that. It's not going to stop me from swimming. I'd rather swim than anything. And at the end of the day, I'm still going to swim. If I swim rubbish at nationals, I don't swim any good races, or I swim one race, I'll still be swimming next week at training. So nothing's going to change that. Nothing's going to stop that. I'll still be back in the water because it's kind of what I love. I love to hate it at times, but you do. But as soon as you get in that water, you think, oh, thank God for that.
I agree, because that's the thing I always tell myself. If I've, had a couple of bad races or just feel rubbish in the water in training, I always tell myself, but I could just quit tomorrow if I wanted to, but I don't want to, and that's what matters. But Beth, same question to you then. So like, kind of, what's your relationship? How has your relationship changed, and what has changed in your mind from maybe a few years ago when you're an age grouper?
Considering that when I quit, I vowed to never ever swim ever again when I was 13, I think it's probably a lot more positive now. Yes. I think mainly for me, I was so good as an age grouper on, like, I didn't used to have to try when I was an age grouper, so I had no respect or, I massively took it for granted when I was younger, and now I don't. I love swimming for swimming instead of I like it because I'm really good at it. And I find like I've created so much more resilience being a master swimmer, because I had to come from like 8 to 10 years out and not doing a lot of training, and I've had to work my way back to like the times that I was posting when I was younger. And I feel like that has been like a real journey, and it's not been like easy at all. Like it's been so hard, and especially when you feel like you could be doing better, and like balancing it with life, that's a lot tougher than when you're just at school and you kind of like go to school. Obviously it's very tiring, but you're like, when you're a kid, you just like, you go to school, you go swimming, and it just like rinse and repeat. And I think it's a lot more humbling now than it was, but like I get so much more out of it, and it's so much more positive now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I've just like lessons for learned. I've just learned to be so resilient, and that's really helped. I think doing a PhD has helped my swimming resilience, and swimming resilience has helped me in my PhD as well. And they've kind of positively fed each other, even though they're both at times can be really stressful. It's taught me to deal with everything, manage my expectations, set myself little goals, and, you know, create a journey instead of just looking at the end point. So I think, yeah, it's just overwhelmingly positive now.
That's really good. I know the journey is something you often refer to, which is great. And James, you again, you've said in the past on this podcast that, and I think you said earlier actually, that you train between work and getting home. So it's that wind down period. So I guess for you, it's a very positive thing in your life.
Yeah. Like I said, it's sort of the love, hate. You know, it's as an age group thinking about it, it was just integral part of my life. It was just part of learning life, you know, time management, all the things that, respect for your coaches, respect for others, almost the working environment as an age group. Then, you know, as with most people, got bored of it. But then the only reason I came back to swimming was, you know, being honest, I was in a very, very dark place at the time, physically and mentally, and I had no aspirations whatsoever to compete ever again. Because, you know, almost mirroring what Beth said, I never wanted to be near a swimming pool again, but I never wanted to race again and put myself under that pressure. So I joined the club. I was, right, I'm just going to train. And then I think 5 months later, I did my first Yorkshire County Championship, just for a bit of fun. And then it's just changed from there. It's just, you know, like I say, I was in a bad place. And as I've grown and gotten better myself, sort of the more I've gotten re-involved with swimming, so to speak. So I've been back in 9 years, it'll be 10 years next year. You know, sort of, I never thought 10 years ago when I just wanted to do 3 hour-long training sessions a week that, you know, I'd be doing international competitions, masters, nationals, etc., etc. I never ever thought it was going to be there. But as I've grown and repaired as a person, you know, I can take it on, and I'm using swimming as the tool, you know, to deal with demons, to deal with the stresses of work, to, you know, give a bit of balance to your life. So for every bad thing, you know, as Simo said, it doesn't matter how bad your day's been. You can just get in the water. You can just swim. You don't have to be at 100%. You don't have to be PBing. You can just get in and swim, and you can switch your mind off. You can think about your stroke. You can just do some 25s, some 50s, some 100s, whatever you want to do. You can just get in, block out the rest of the world, use it as a you know, an isolated headspace. So it's always there, and, you know, looking at it now, it will always be there for me, because that's the joy of masters. And long may it last, and keep me sane.
Yeah, that's a brilliant answer. Thanks for sharing that. And so, Jo, the thing that that everybody said so far is that swimming has given them resilience in other parts of their life. Is that something that you feel?
Yeah, definitely. I think could repeat what everyone said there, basically. But for sure, I think when I was younger, it was definitely a much love and hate thing. But it taught me that discipline, that resilience, those life skills. And then obviously when I had the break, I never thought about it. I was glad to get away, to be honest. Glad to live a little bit more, not training morning and night at the time. But I think when I came back, I just love it now. I think it's that sense of belonging. And to be honest, the guys who I swim with are fantastic. I swim with Harrogate, and we train at David Lloyd in North Leeds. And I've only just moved back up north for 2 years, because I've lived in London for, I don't know, 30 years. And basically they're just amazing, because they're my social, they're my friends, really. That's all the friends I've sort of got up here. And they're ace. We just laugh, you know, we don't have much rest at the ends of each length, unfortunately, each set, let's say, but We have, well, it's great chat and loads of jokes. We go out, they've made me feel so welcome. And I just think those things are so important. It helps. And it's so nice. Obviously, if I had a love-hate, I don't know if I'd be continuing with it, but I just really love it. So I just think, like everyone said, it just puts me in a good place, for sure.
Mm. No, that's a good answer. I think I remember seeing something on Facebook, which was things you can't live without, and it was 4 pictures. So it was like air, water, food, and a pool boy. And I just thought, brilliant picture. It's exactly how I feel. And actually, I think for me personally, the time in my life when swimming was most important to me was actually in lockdown, because I think I mean, this is a completely separate conversation, but just briefly, obviously, we were all in this situation where we were at home. There were so many things we couldn't do, including swimming. But I was like, I don't want to let my swimming, I don't want to let it go. I don't want to let it drop off because of this break. So every day I was working out in the flat. I was going out for runs and having swimming in my life kept me disciplined through COVID. Whereas some of my mates, had too many beers, too many chocolate bars, and then suddenly found themselves post-COVID thinking, oh my God, I've got to get back in shape now. So I actually think for me, having swimming it kept me disciplined in my life, when a time that would have been very, very easy to just let loose a little bit. So yeah, that's it's definitely a positive for me. I definitely want to carry on this conversation around mental health on future podcasts. But we've opened the topic up now, which is great. Thank you very much, Jo, James, Simo, and Beth for joining us. And we will talk again soon.